Hey y'all, as you might have noticed, this is going to be a little bit different than the rest of my sabbatical videos. So if you clicked on the thumbnail, I'm assuming that you have some curiosity over the country in question. And I'm not going to treat you, the audience, like you're dumb. I know you know what's going on over there, and that's just something that I can't ignore. But I did go over to Israel right after being in Jordan per my last video. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to make this a political video, but it is going to be an honest one. I would like to apologize to anyone who feels uncomfortable by this video. I would like to, but I'm not gonna. See, that is exactly what this video is for. I want it to make you think. I want you to make your own inferences after what I share. But as a video creator, that's ultimately all I can do. Here's the quick rundown for anyone who's not totally aware on the history. I had to, teach myself as well. So no shame if you didn't know it at all. But here's the quick education. So around World War I, the British gave the Jewish people a state or a territory in what is now common day Palestine. It used to be larger. The British did this because during World War I, they needed the support of a lot of Jewish communities. They wanted to also protect their interest in the Middle East. Then in 1948 is when the Israeli people became independent of the British. And that's actually the time where the Arab-Israeli war began. And then ever since then, there's just been conflict fighting over the land because, of course, Israel was not there before, and now they were expanding. So that's just the quick background. But a lot of the conflicts, most of it was in those surrounding areas. That, of course, was the West Bank as one of the places. And that's actually where my story begins. Off the bat, going over from Amman, Jordan to Israel was a damn journey. The bus from Amman takes you to the border and drops you off. It doesn't go any farther. From there, you have to go through a series of checkpoints and more buses, a lot of regulation, armed soldiers everywhere, watchtower, fences, the whole 9 yards before you can even cross over. Thought number one was, damn, there's so much protection and enforcement here. It's got to be impossible for anyone crossing over here to be ignorant to the fact of the current conflict. And thought number two is, I know these Israeli soldiers were already probably born in this land, but do they ever think, what if my ancestors, or what if our Jewish state was somewhere else, somewhere other than the Middle East? Would things have been different? I mean, I put myself in their shoes, and if I was there, in their position, I'd always be thinking that. So to those of you who might not know, I grew up in Peru with 2 Catholic parents. I've had my baptism, confession, communion. I used to go to Sunday school every Sunday after church. I have been in a youth group called Young Life. And despite all this, I'm still agnostic. And without getting too deep into that, my secondary reason for going to Jerusalem was to try and reconnect with the history of religion, see it firsthand in front of me, and then reevaluate how I felt about it now. And I did go to all 4 quarters, from the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I saw people expressing their faiths in many different ways. There was people celebrating, there was people crying, there was people in groups kneeling down. It was pretty remarkable to watch. But throughout all this, the one thing that I was thinking about was my mom. She's definitely the most religious person in my life, and although we don't agree on a lot of these topics, I know that religion brings her purpose, it gives her hope, and it gives her peace of mind that us as a family will be together forever in the afterlife. And honestly, that's a very nice thought, and something I would never dare to take away from her. However, for me, no matter how hard I've tried, I've kind of been indifferent about it. Especially even in Israel, like I really did try to go to a lot of these places for my mom. I know she would want me to. And I stood in line for like an hour trying to see the Tomb of Christ. I got kicked out of line for wearing shorts that showed my knees. even though the guy in front of me had the same size shorts. But anyways, I went back to the hostel, changed, tried again, then waited again, and then I got yelled at when I was at the front of the line because they're just yelling, trying to pump people in and out to seek the Christ of God. The bishops are screaming the whole time. Hardly a religious epiphany for me, but I mean, I gave it a shot, right? Even with all that said, the architecture was beautiful. The history is fascinating. And still, though, I left feeling the same way that I did going in, except now a little bit more jealous of all the other people who were having these crazy religious experiences. So yeah, let's talk about the events prior to November 7th. And for anyone out there who thinks that these events came out of nowhere and they were random, please reevaluate where that's coming from, because I can promise you there's been tension building here for decades. I could see and feel it personally from being there. On my first day, I actually met a buddy who had traveled deeper into the Western Wall, and he was showing me pictures of like all these Palestinian homes with kicked down doors and bullets on the side of their house, like bullet holes. And he showed me pictures, and like off the bat, to me, I was already starting to see what was kind of going on there. I noticed this inside the city as well, as in Jerusalem there's certain alleyways and like streets that only Muslim people have to use to get to where they're going, and they're heavily armed. There's soldiers on both sides of like each street, kind of looking down on Muslim people. It felt like segregation, but it felt kind of sad. I can't tell you how many soldiers I saw in Jerusalem in full squads marching down, like in formation, fully decked out, and all the weaponry. It's definitely, you can't avoid feeling the sense of hostility that there is. One of the more hostile situations that I think I observed was when I was in the Dome of the Rock, which is the third holiest site in the Muslim world, and a lot of Muslim people go there to pray, and they've traveled from all over the world to come see this monument. And there was a part where there was some Hasidic Jews who came in, and they had like a bunch of guards with them, like kind of like a protection, looked like bodyguards, and they were just walking around the dome. And I could see all the Muslim people like look at them and feel uncomfortable, partly because of fear, and then partly because of disrespect. I could feel them feeling disrespected, because I mean, how would you feel if you were trying to pray in one of the holiest site of your religion, and then there's people with massive guns right behind you? However, by far the most uncomfortable moment for me was when I was walking around one of the streets with my camera, and I got stopped by some of these soldiers. They had been dicks to me all over the city, and that's fine. I'm used to guards being dicks, but they blocked my path. They would not let me pass. They started questioning me. They thought I was Muslim. They probably thought I was a journalist, honestly, because of my camera. And I had to quickly whip out my American passport. I had to defuse the situation, letting them know I'm not even from, I'm not Muslim at all. It was just a wild scenario, and I just right there and then I felt a little taste, just a tiny taste, of what some Muslim people must be feeling all the time. There are many disputes like this all the time throughout the city, just because of the the tension. And my last couple of days there, there was a stabbing. Apparently there was a dispute between like a Muslim person and an IDF soldier. The whole city was on alert. And yeah, this was during Rosh Hashanah too. So I'm assuming, because I saw a lot of Jewish people in the streets dancing and singing with escorts, with IDF soldiers everywhere, marching around areas where there was a lot of Muslim people, kind of throwing it in their face. And honestly, that probably just adds fuel to the fire that is the hostility of this city. So then I knew that it was time to get out of there. And right after that event, I went over and took a train to Tel Aviv. I, as a tourist, by no means am a saint, though. Like, while I was there, I ate non-kosher red meat. I got a tattoo. I went on a pub crawl, and I definitely consumed more than is appropriate, I guess, for either of these religions. But I'm no saint at all. But it was tough for me to not feel guilt in partaking in a lot of these things, especially knowing what I know now about how bad it already was. I will say there was a pro for me to go on that outing with my hostel to a bunch of different pubs. I hung out with a lot of Israeli people around my age, and this is kind of my first time to actually be able to break bread with them, sit down and ask just about their lives. So I did learn a couple of things. The younger people, they definitely have less of a Zionistic view than the older generations. They talk about leaving the country. They want to move to other places in the world. It was definitely interesting to hear how for them this wasn't the state that they always wanted to be in. They also told me they are aware of all the terrible things that happen in the West Bank and near the Gaza Strip. And although they feel pretty terrible about it because, they definitely know that it's not the right thing, they feel powerless to do anything about it either. And it kind of felt like what Americans feel like, when we see other countries that America has either destabilized or, waged war in, and seeing how they are now. There was a parallel there. And then lastly, I learned that they actually have a little bit of a beef with the Hasidic Jews because they don't pay taxes. They get like homes and like stipends handed to them. They don't have to join the military. It was an interesting dynamic that I never really thought about. Regardless of everything, I do wish I had more conversations with both sides. These are the moments where I learn the most, and I humanize people that I've only heard about from across the world. I won't dive too deep into Tel Aviv. I didn't really do anything too crazy there. It was basically Miami in the Middle East. People were clubbing, partying on the beach and stuff like that. I almost forgot that I was in the Middle East. What I will say now is that I constantly think about what would have been if I was there the day that Hamas attacked and there were lots of victims at that music festival. But also, since then, there's also been many victims on the Palestinian side. It just seems like it's the people with the least power and the most innocent people that end up paying the price. Now, I don't want there to be any ambiguity, so I'll be direct. I fully believe that there should be an immediate ceasefire to prevent further loss of life, especially on the Palestinian side, because they are not at a war, okay? This is not a war. This is an extermination. This is a one-sided conflict. It breaks my heart constantly to think about the events that happen there every day. I'm not naive, though. I know this can't be solved through a mere YouTube video, but I did want to share how I arrived at my conclusion. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning into this one-off type video. I felt like I definitely wanted to take it seriously, and I wanted to express it in a different manner. But starting from my next sabbatical video, I will go back to the vlog style, and I will be going to Mongolia, which I think was one of my top destinations during my sabbatical. I'm super excited to put together my experiences there. And yeah, it was 2 weeks of living with nomads all over the country. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.